Welcome to Single Parent Success Stories, a podcast designed to inspire single parents. Here you'll find resources from self-care to finances to parenting and everything in between. Discover what it takes to thrive. Let the stories inspire you to what is possible. Welcome to Single Parent Success Stories. Today's guest is Kristina Mand-Lakhiani. She is the co-founder of Mindvalley. She's an international speaker, entrepreneur, artist, philanthropist, and the mother of 2 kids. Welcome, Kristina. It is a pleasure to have you.
Irina, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. So please share with us, who is Kristina for people who don't know?
Well, you just explained. Usually when I talk about myself, I normally say that I'm a co-founder of Mindvalley and I'm a writer and an author because these are the most prominent things about me. But of course, as any other human being, we have so many different facets to us. So I do a lot of things in my life. But my primary job and the role in which I usually appear on interviews is being a co-founder of Mindvalley, one of the world's probably biggest personal growth and education companies in, well, I said the world. So that's my main work.
Awesome. What inspired you to write the idea about your book, Becoming Flawsome?
I guess like any other writer and author, the inspiration came from my own life. I do believe we constantly find inspiration in our own life, even if it's not very obvious. But the book, of course, is not about me. Neither is it about my experience. It's a much more generic approach to the question of finding your path back to you. I do use my own life's examples from time to time, but generally I like to ask myself a question: is that true about everyone, or is it just my experience? And I like to look at things from a slightly wider point of view. Well, maybe because I've been in personal growth for such a long time, and it's my professional quality to look at things from the point of view of how can it be useful for others. And also, you know, we are so different yet so similar. So how can we make teachings relevant to every single person, so that on one side you kind of feel that, yes, you can learn from someone else's experience, but you can also feel that what you're learning is your personal journey and it's your personal story, and it's about you foremost. So yeah, as I said, my book was inspired by my own experience and colored by my professional well, qualifications probably.
Yeah, yes. How did you come up with the title? I think it's very interesting. Flawsome.
The word is not mine. I found it, and it's. I think it's a word which maybe isn't that well known, but it is a rather common word, as in it doesn't belong to anyone. And you know how books are written. You usually, I think when I was in university, our professors always told us, first write the work and then give it the title, because as you write the work, you find out what it is about. You kind of have the question initially, and you can always put the question as your title. But it was so with my book. When I started, I had a whole page of all kinds of possible titles. But when I finished, it was absolutely clear. The title found itself. The title found the book.
I loved how it combines, looking at your insecurities and embracing them and still being awesome, and nonetheless, because we all have all different kind of traits, and oftentimes we beat ourselves the hardest, being the judge and the cheerleader all wrapped into one. What perspectives or beliefs have you challenged with this work?
You mean for the reader or for myself? There's a somewhat different. I mean, of course, most of the things that end up in the book have been my own questions at some point and my own journey of discovery, and I've put them in the book. But of course, while writing the book, we all are constantly work in progress. So I found new questions which might not be in the book yet or will be in the next one. But for the reader, I guess the main question that I would ask the reader before they pick up the book is, how well do you really know yourself? And it's a trick question because I've asked it many times off stage. I talk about authenticity quite a bit, and I've asked it many times on stage, and almost always I get a universal, yeah, I'm authentic. I'm honest with myself. I know myself, because that's our perception. But you know, they say that the fish is never aware that the fish is in the water. The nature of delusion is the same. We're never aware when we are looking at a distorted image. So I know it's a little uncomfortable question to start with, but that's ultimately what I'm getting at. All those. I'm not saying that people are not truthful with themselves, but what I'm saying is that we sometimes have this little margin or the blind corner which we're not aware of, and very often that's where your next transformation lies. So what I'm hoping to achieve is that people actually approach their self-image with curiosity and ask themselves. Ask themselves to give themselves another chance. Like, do I really know myself? What about me maybe is not quite what I'd like it to be.
Yes, so true. I managed, in the process of a relationship, I managed to lose myself, and I think I saw somewhere where you were writing that you had to rediscover who you were during your journey as well, because oftentimes we don't know if we dismiss the labels. Another thing that you pointed out, we often cannot see the label from inside the box.
Yeah,
being a fish and not knowing that you're in the water. What part of the book did you have the hardest time writing, or everything was kind of clear?
The hardest part about the book was actually the editing process. That was the most painful, probably. But in terms of writing, I found writing about honesty very hard. Because in the Western society, contemporary Western society, we're a little uptight about honesty, and there's huge moral and ethical baggage which you can't close your eyes to when you talk about honesty. But my claim that people, and I only talk about self-honesty, I actually don't talk about honesty with the world. And my claim in the book is that we lie to ourselves. We are very comfortable with that, and very often we don't even realize that we do. And it was the hardest part for me to write, mostly because I didn't know how to break the news without alienating people. Because you like, if you give yourself time and you look into the research, you start realizing that that's true. We think with our brain, well, as most of us, we think with our brain, and brain's primary function is to keep you safe. And that means that brain helps you to see the reality in the way which is the safest to you. And very often it's not just the dangers outside, like, the lion lurking around the corner, the proverbial lion lurking around the corner. I think everybody talks about that. But it's also the reality which you do not like, or the reality or the situations which maybe challenge your self-worth or your perception of the world or your belief system. These are also the question of life and death very often for us, because we need to belong, to be liked, to be loved. And a lot of such situations are actual threats, and our brain protects us from those threats by distorting reality so that reality doesn't look so threatening. So once you start looking into all the different ways that we make life a little more palatable, you suddenly come to a conclusion that at any point of time, you might be wrong. And that is such a freeing realization. It really opens up the path to transformation. And you said, I was still discovering myself as I was writing the book. I hope I keep discovering myself as I do anything until I die, because I think life is about self-discovery, non-ending.
Yes, we are a never-growing evolution of the soul, and just like the layers of the onion, as you peel one, you discover there is another one. What was the most fun to write? Which part of the book was fun?
My favorite part was actually, and I beg you guys to forgive me, but that's my naughty personality is getting in there. So I've been in personal growth industry for 20 years, have built, or actually helped to build one of the biggest players in that industry. So I've worked with some of the best authors and speakers, and I've seen it inside out, and I've seen people on stage and off stage, and read their books and listened to them. And I've seen so many of our clients and students that I can say that I'm an insider. And I think the funnest part was, and it's not one part, it shows here and there when I take a stab at our own industry. I take it as laughing at ourselves because I am a part of it, but it's also really enjoyable to sometimes point out to the things which are ironic and funny and just say, hey, look how funny this is that we do things like that.
Awesome. What advice do you have for it? Was this your first book, by the way?
Yeah, it's my first book, like book. I've been part of other books, but not in so much in the co-author function, but like adding bits and pieces, quite a few, in fact. And of course, I've written my university papers, which amount to a book as well. But that's the first one, which is my book baby, which will have my name on it and goes through the whole process of publishing the way it's supposed to be.
Amazing, amazing. What advice do you have for writers?
I think I would have to qualify that. First of all, I would like to know what kind of writers I talk about. I don't think there is just one type of writers. We can even look at the different genre of books. I've I've contributed to a book about traveling, for example, and contributed bits and pieces to the first of Vision's books. And they're two different genres. And then I personally love fiction. So it depends very much on who you talk about. So I'm obviously not in the position to talk to people who write fiction, because this is a different art form for me altogether. But when it comes to personal growth and transformation, I think it's very important to be clear about why you're doing that. And there are different reasons why people would write books, and all reasons are absolutely valid. And we have to realize that there are millions of books being published every year. So, and that is an important bit of information. So I think advice that I would give is to be very clear what's your purpose, why you're doing that. And depending on that purpose, look for inspiration in people who write with the same purpose, because our paths may be vastly different. I know in our industry, a lot of books are being written as part of the business model. You know, if you speak on stage, obviously you have a book worth of knowledge to share. And that would be a very different inspiration from, say, people who would write a book like Alchemist, which is essentially not fiction. Which or the Conversations with God, for example, right? It's written a little bit in a fiction style, but it's not really fiction. But these books are written with very different motivation, with very different fuel behind them. So it's really important to be clear why you're doing that, and then go down that path and realize that this is a very special path which you are taking, and own it. I wrote a book because I couldn't hold my message back. And I think it's very different from motivation from a lot of books in our industry. But I also know that because of that, my path was different, my experience is different, my expectations are different. So, and my decisions were different. And I think I click more with people who had a similar journey, but then that also means that I'm not sure if I will write the next one, or if I will, you know. Apparently when Lewis Carroll published his first book about Alice in, I think the first one was actually in Wonderland, it was so famous, then I think it was the Victorian era, right? The British Queen asked him to send the next book to her, but he, being mathematician, his next book was on mathematics. So I think that's my path. I write what comes to my mind.
That's awesome. And I think through stories, this is how we connect with each other, with people, and it also leaves a legacy. What is next for you after this book? What is your golden star or North Star?
Well, my business keeps doing it keeps going as it is going, and very often getting into a venture is not so much following a business plan, like they teach us in school. It's more like jumping out of the plane. Once you're out, there are so many forces that take you along the path. So with the book, initially I thought, okay, the manuscript is ready. Now the hardest work is done. But then I'd find out that that was the easiest work. The hardest is actually still ahead. And then they say that, yeah, before you launch the book, you have to have a new program which actually matches your book, and you have to record it, and then you start recording it, and then you think, okay, now the hardest part is done. And then they say, no, but the books, you know, they don't pay. You have to have another program. Then you go into another program, and then you're like, okay, I'm done with all of that. And then they say, no, by the way, you have to do interviews. And it's a never-ending story. So I don't really bother too much about that path, because it's like an escalator. You step on it and it takes you somewhere. But of course, I do a lot of things in life. So when that path reaches its logical conclusion, I'm quite likely going to write another book, because I enjoy the process. But if not, there's so much to do.
Yeah. And I've been following Mindvalley for quite some time, and I do love the mission of the company and what you guys are doing. I have completed coaching certifications, and it's been an incredible journey. Thank you so much for what you're sharing with the world. Is there anything I didn't ask that you would like to share?
There's so many things you didn't ask. And we can talk about a lot of things, but if it comes to the book, I don't know, you know your audience, you know your show, so you make the rules of the game, and I'm your guest, so I'll follow your lead.
Awesome. So my podcast is about single parent success stories. And since you are a brand new single parent, what kind of advice would you give single parents who are just stepping onto the journey?
So I like to call myself a single parent when I need to feel, that, guys, I need help. You could call it the victim mentality, or rather using the victim point of view to get a little support. But actually, I don't consider myself a single parent. I'm a divorced parent, but Vishen is very prominent in our lives. He supports, as parents and as family, we are still the same, we're just not husband and wife anymore. So in that aspect, probably I'm not in the position to advise people who are truly left alone. And I know that I have friends who are single parents in the full meaning of that word, even if they're, let's say, father or mother is still somewhere there and still in contact, but the brunt of responsibility is on their shoulders. And I don't have this situation. But from my point of view, what I would suggest is that if you have emotional capacity, if your circumstances permit, then try to separate your parenting from your love life in that relationship which didn't last. And if you can restore the co-parenting to a healthy level, it is the best gift you can give to yourself, to your ex-partner, and to your children.
Thank you. That's awesome advice. Thank you so much. When is the book launching? I'm excited.
Unfortunately, I still have to have a lot of patience, and when you do something, a lot of things require patience. When you want a child, you still need to wait for 9 months, even no matter how much you want it. So it's launching in June, and I can't wait for that day.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and being with us today. I loved it, and I'm excited for the launch of the book, and I wish you the success in all of your endeavors.
Thank you so much for having me, for your wonderful questions, and for actually trusting in Mindvalley and doing work with us. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.